So then, as you know, I was going through treatment, and by the way, I was working full time throughout cancer. I started really kind of looking at, everything that I was using, because I realized, oh, well, what about, the paints that we use? This idea of death being a part of and becoming her lover, right? He actually becomes her husband. And out of all the Olympian gods, they're the only two who are actually loyal to each other. Instead, I was my own heroine. I was very much in a tango with Hades, dancing with my cancer and loving my cancer, because that taught me so much about life. I'm actually trying to dance with that. It's a beautiful balance between light and dark. For example, your underworld can be the time that you're sleeping, right?
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Awakening Spaces podcast. Today, I'm going to be chatting with Mahwish Syed. Mahwish is a true soul sister. Her and I connected originally through the Applied Quantum Biology Collective, where I listened in on her presentation on creating a healthy quantum home. And I just loved everything that she was talking about. We are so aligned on so many of our views of the environment and life. And I am so incredibly excited to share her story with you today. It is one of hope and healing. And yeah, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Well, welcome, Mahwish. How are you?
I am super, Ashley. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to chat more with you. So I first connected with you. You were giving a presentation for the Applied Quantum Biology certification. And I was instantly attracted. I knew I loved you immediately because your presentation was all about blending ancient wisdom and mythology and quantum practices into the environment. And not to mention, like, all of your designs that you showed us were stunning and just beautiful use of color. And I would just love to learn more a little bit about how you got here, because I know that you have a really deep healing story that brought you here. And so I'd love for you to share with us how you got here.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, how I got here. Well, being a fashion and interior designer for over 2 decades in New York City, I have been a maker of beauty pretty much my whole life. I've been sewing since I was 4 years old. So it's been a natural progression. But what really was a big turning point for me into looking at my space from my healing lens was my own cancer journey. And I began to investigate, Ashley. And the reason why is most cancers, and I don't know if people realize this, are epigenetic. So that means they're the result of your lifestyle and your environment. About 95% of cancers, right? Which is actually great news, because that means we have agency. So then, as I was going through treatment, and by the way, I was working full time throughout cancer. I started really kind of looking at, everything that I was using, because I realized, oh, well, what about, the paints that we use? What about the materials that we surround ourselves with? What about the fabrics that we wear? All of those things, I started really, bit by bit, very methodically investigating, right? And researching. And that led me to, quantum biology, which there's a huge factor of an influence of light, the right light, right, on our health and on our cellular function. And there's a big connection between the wrong light and cancer. So again, it was just like this crazy full circle moment. And I was started leading workshops, mostly from the perspective of helping other cancer survivors, because I'm like, I can't gatekeep this. I want to share what I know, right? So one modality is, yes, let's remove the things that are toxic. which you know very well. The other part is beauty is healing. Beauty actually heals you. And the science of neuroaesthetics backs me up now, because I'm like, oh my gosh, everything that I've been doing on an intuitive level for myself is suddenly being vetted and being like, okay, well, there is science, hard science behind this, right? So I was doing a workshop at Mount Sinai, and one of the patients was like, "This is from your book, right? This is from your book." And I'm like, how many times have I heard that?" I'm like, "Okay, I have to write the book. I have to write the book." So the book came out, which is Purgatory to Paradise. And I'm curious to see what you thought of it, Ashley, and what points it made that were new for you.
Yeah, I love, first of all, if you guys want to learn more, I highly recommend the book. I just really loved learning about the story of Persephone and how you connected it to your own healing journey. And I would love for you just to share a little tidbit of that with people because, you know, before that I had known some of those mythology stories, but not really that well. And it felt like you pulled it into modern day in such a beautiful way. So can you share a little bit more about the story of Persephone?
Absolutely. Thank you. Persephone is the goddess of this. She's known as the goddess of the seasons. And the reason why is she wasn't even Persephone then. She was Chloe. So she was this young, innocent maiden hanging out in a meadow, picking, hyacinths and lilies and crocuses. And she spied this new flower that she'd never seen before, which was actually bait. And that bait was a narcissus, and otherwise known as the daffodil. And so botany is a big part of my design work too. So I love bringing the garden into that's a very Persephone moment. So as she's reaching for this narcissus, the earth opens up and Hades comes out with his black steeds and kidnaps her and takes her down into the underworld. And the reason why that story really stuck with me is I think we tend to ignore death. We are biohacking our way out of death. In our society, there is, especially in the West, a real resistance to the idea of death, right? And we're all about youthfulness. And so, like, we're kind of staying in this state of horror moment the entire time. So, the idea of, what I call the Holy Trinity, the maiden, the mother, and the crone, the mother and the maiden are completely iced out. It's like maiden forever right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of death being a part of and becoming her lover, right? He actually becomes her husband. And out of all the Olympian gods, they're the only two who are actually loyal to each other, by the way. That's not in my book, but it's just an aside. But that is an important thing. And what I did in my book was create an analogy between Hades and Cancer. So Cancer was my divine lover. So that's a very different framework than, the drama triangle of Cancer is the villain and the doctor is the hero and you're the helpless maiden, the victim who's waiting for someone to save her, right? And instead, I was my own heroine. I was very much in a tango with Hades, dancing with my Cancer and loving my Cancer, because that taught me so much about life. Death taught me so much about life.
Yeah, that is like the whole basis for shadow work, right? It's like really bringing that darkness to the light and seeing like how and what can this teach me? What can this show me? And how can I be playful with it? And I feel like you did such a good job of being really playful with that diagnosis and it taught you so much. And I think that that's part of healing, not just for the removal of all these toxins and learning about this stuff, but really just like coming to an acceptance and like this inner healing, inner work that goes on behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I think fear is the opposite of love. And so instead of fearing my body and having a battle with cancer, or I'm at odds with my body and how dare my body betray me, like that is very negative and very adversarial within oneself. It creates dissonance, right? Even further dissonance. than having, cancer or any illness for that matter. So instead, what I did was, okay, like Rumi's poem, The Guest House, you invite each, malice, you invite the dark thought, the despair, and even if it rends your house of its furniture, you invite them in with open arms because they have something to give you, right? So this moment of acceptance and allowing this to just unfurl and not trying to control it was a really important, what I call one of my pomegranate seeds of wisdom, because when Persephone goes down, and this is the key point, she eats the food of the dead, which is the pomegranate, which, by the way, Ashley, pomegranates are associated with female sexuality in Victorian times. They were representing the female ovaries. So this idea of her coming into her own sexually and her power, her empowerment happened when she ate those seeds, right? Of becoming that queen herself. And then her name changed from Chloe, which is innocence, to Persephone, right? So that moment is such a powerful symbol for me. And pomegranates, funny enough, have been always been a huge symbol for me since childhood. But I think what's important to recognize is those lessons that you learn in your darkest moment, you do bring to the light, and then they bear fruit, right? They bloom for you and they bear their own fruit. And so this cycle continues. And in terms of design, I think it's important to recognize that I'm designing from a place where I'm not trying to mitigate death. I'm actually trying to dance with death. It's a beautiful balance between light and dark. For example, your underworld can be the time that you're sleeping, right? The balance that you need, that rest that you need when you're sleeping, how to create a space that is a cozy little underworld when you can finally rest, right? And I have for that. So, and then the light, and to bring, daylight into your space as much as possible, the connection to the seasons. And Persephone symbolizes literally circadian, she's a circadian goddess, right? So this idea of our circadian rhythm, which is our ancient biology at play, is really important. And I often use this analogy that if you think of our human existence on this planet as a 24-hour clock, only in the last 30 seconds have we had electricity, right? So the other 23 plus hours, we have been very much intrinsically tied to the rhythms of light, of that natural light of the sun, right? And so after that electrified life began, and we're like, oh, it's so convenient, so convenient. It hasn't been so convenient, has it?
No. No. Oh my gosh. I love everything you just said. I want to go back to that piece about control, because I think that um, when we start to go down this rabbit hole of learning about the different things in our environment that might be harming us, it starts to create this need for control. And so you said that so perfectly with your own health journey and feeling that need to control. I'm wondering, how do you balance creating healthier environments without trying to grasp for the control of it and the perfection of it all?
Hey, you can create something so perfect, Ashley, for your client. They may not follow your instructions. Something perfect. And they're not, you know what I'm saying? We can't control how they use the space after we design it either. Right. So even as during the design process, there's an element of, surrender. Right. And it's funny because there's a chapter in my book called Embracing the Unknown where, it's about being a mermaid and learning how to breathe underwater and realizing that we, instead of flailing at the surface of things and trying to control the ocean, to dive into that ocean, right? And to be a part of that ocean, to be the mermaid and to breathe through adversity and breathe through a challenge and breathe through an unforeseen condition that happens, right? And so I think how do I balance that is first by recognizing that I'm not really in control. I'm in a beautiful symphony. I feel like I'm a symphony conductor, right? With all the different strings and the brass and the percussion and everybody can be in dissonance and it sounds awful as cacophony, or it can be beautiful harmony and you're like transported, right? That's when we like have a dream team and like everything's flowing and everybody works together even through the challenges. And sometimes the solution is even better than your original design. So there's that, right? So be open, right? Be open to wonder. Be open to the gift that the universe is trying to give you. Sometimes it's not packaged really well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So for me, cancer wasn't packaged really well. It was a pretty nasty package, right? But I found so much treasure through that. And you know, I liken it literally as my doorway to freedom because I was living in purgatory. I was living life by default. I was waiting to live. I was passive, passively accepting what was told to me as the way, right? Until I started having cancer and saying, hey, well, you know, my genetics came back negative. Like this, I don't have the genes. So what caused this, right? And I didn't want to accept this very pat and very passive phrase that we bandy in society is, you know, bad things happen to good people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. No, no, it's not so simple as that because it makes you go, okay, well, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to look around and be active in your life, investigate, be curious, ask questions, and also in every moment, especially a challenging moment, ask yourself, what is the lesson here?
Mm-hmm.
What is coming through? What do I need to learn?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so true. And that's, I mean, in so many pieces of my own life that have been hard, looking back on them now, there's always been such a beautiful lesson. And I think most of the people who might be listening here are people who have dealt with some sort of environmental illness. They are going through this trauma thinking that their environment is going to kill them. And that can create for a lot of need to control. And then, even when things are healthy, even when things are clean and safe and designed well, there's still that element of not being able to feel safe because it's like you're still grasping for control. And so I love that being, you know, playing it out like an orchestra. And I loved the analogy of like diving into the water and stuff instead of trying to push against the waves. I think about that when I'm actually in the ocean and you're standing there and the waves are just like taking you down and you're like, I'm just going to dive into this one. And it's so much smoother. So that's such a beautiful analogy. Uh, but I also wanted to touch a little bit on you had mentioned like you realized when you found out you had cancer that there was dissonance. What are some practices that you do today to create more resonance, especially being so in tune with so many different frequencies, which I want to talk more about in a second?
Oh my gosh, great question. Pleasure and beauty are my vehicle. Okay. Pleasure and beauty were the way I got through cancer. I'll give you an example. When I was undergoing chemo, I couldn't taste anything. Everything smelled weird. It was just I could barely, you know, imbibe things. So basically, if even if it was a banana, you know, or a piece of white bread, like really simple kind of textures, right? So even if it was a banana, I would lay it out on my best dishes, add like a pansy from my garden as garnish. I would spread rose petals on the table. I would light a candle. I brought down these, my best silverware. I mean, after the death of my marriage, I didn't even use this stuff because it was like wedding, you know, like really special occasion stuff. So I dusted it off and started using that during cancer treatment. And even if I couldn't taste that banana, I was going to make sure that it was beautiful, that it was a beautiful experience. And I was grateful to imbibe whatever nutrition it was giving me at the time. So beauty became a very natural way for me to create these rituals. I call them my rituals of reverence, right? What can we hold sacred in our lives at every moment, and especially during pain, right? Another example is I would take scarves to my infusions and I would dab the corners of them with essential oil, right? Because then it wasn't, I was kind of sprung. I had the cold cap. I had my hands and feet in ice for the neuropathy. And I'm a girl who I get cold at 60 degrees. So, it's, I believe, negative 39 Fahrenheit. Like it's so cold. And to be able to at least use one of my senses to kind of remind myself of like some, a beautiful lavender field in California that I visited, right? It just helped me because smell is a huge part. I do now senses workshops because of this, because I use my senses instead of, hey, checking out, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those are the four trauma responses, right? When you're in your sympathetic state. When you're in the hospital getting a procedure done or having an infusion, you're in your trauma state. Mm. So, how to bring yourself into your parasympathetic state, right? Your rest and relaxation state is what I just naturally started to do. So, by simply dabbing my scarf with that lavender essential oil and smelling it, I was brought back to a happy moment, right? And I was trying to do all these things just, and that's pleasure in the pain. That is trying to seek, even in the chaos, even in the construction zone, some moment that makes you feel good about it, right?
Yep. Yep. And I do the same thing. I like to try to romanticize every moment of my life. Like, just make it feel even in the most mundane, because especially with starting my business, there's a lot of long days, a lot of late nights, a lot of working overtime. And sometimes it feels like I'm getting in the monotony of life. And so it's like, well, what can I do? What little simple practices can I do to romanticize every moment of life? And I feel like you did that so well. I have this, before I go on to any of these types of calls, even before I start my workday, I use this oil. It's rose, sandalwood, and vetiver.
Ooh.
Oh, and it grounds me. It just grounds me into the day. And it's just like my little moment before I get on to sit behind a screen for most of the day. And I just put it on, I breathe it in, and I just say I'm grateful for being able to do this work and being able to have this conversation and things like that. It's the little tiny things and moments of gratitude that really do make such a big difference. And so I think you said that so beautifully. And speaking on frequencies, because one of the things I'm most excited to talk to you about are fabrics and frequency of fabrics. And I would love to just hear from the beginning, like, how did you get into it? And can you share what that means for somebody who's like, what frequency of fabric? I don't understand.
So I think my journey with fabric started literally when I was an infant, because I remember my mother sews, my grandmother sews, my great grandmother sews, and I was living in Pakistan with four generations of women under one roof. And my earliest memories were the feeling of this particular silk that my mom had created a baby quilt for me. And the edges were like a satin silk, and the inside was brocade. It was a turquoise. And I just would touch it and feel it. And then I learned to sew with scraps as my aunties were making things and so on. And I believe it is what really, it's like one of these core memories, Ashley, where it was an imprint. Like the fabric was a massive imprint. And irony of all ironies, I ended up getting the Mellon Fellowship at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in Textile Conservation. So that's how I came to New York. And that was just a crazy kind of serendipitous thing because I originally wasn't planning on doing that, And so I ended up then being hired out of all the interns to stay and work at the Ratti Textile Center. I even met Antonio Ratti, and I just felt like I was surrounded and I got to touch everything. I got to touch everything. I still get to touch everything. So it was this moment of realizing that this fabric, first of all, it was a really big deal because it was the first time textiles were considered outside the realm of craft, but into high art. It was the first moment they had their own space, right? from all the 18 curatorial departments, they were all separate. They were all housed separately. Now, the first time there was a dedicated facility, temperature controlled, humidity controlled, and I was in, helping create the storage spaces and the support structures for them. I was sewing. So it was a really wonderful experience. And I'm telling you why I'm telling you this. It's with me today. It's how we move through life and what we attract to ourselves. So textiles has always been my first love. And that's how I ended up doing fashion design because I dyed my own things. I printed my own things. I knew how to weave. I know how to sew, how to knit, how to do the 17th century stump work. So my designs were basically like wedding dresses and specialty, special occasion clothing, things like that down in the East Village. And again, I mean, I was dyeing things with hibiscus, with tea, with onion skins, avocado, like everything that, natural things that I would research, right? Mm-hmm. And funny enough, I tried a line of clothing that was also scented. I made my own scents. Oh my gosh, it was crazy because then, you have to infuse it after you wash it and then it would hold. But I was thinking about it back then. But I think the frequency of fabrics and the science behind it has always been there. My anthropological approach to things, how ethnobotanical approach to things, how rites of passage, our women's sensuality and sexuality is connected to plants in so many different cultures. So there's a historical aspect, there's a scientific aspect, and I think one of the things that I think sets me apart is I don't pick just one. I combine them. I combine the mythology, I combine the history, and I combine the science, and it's seamless because that's what life is. We are walking miracles on legs. We are. We are. We're spirit. We're light, right? We are all these things. We're ancient. So think about yourself as this magical being. So why not think about frequency as a part of that? And what will amplify your frequency, right? What will do that? So, there's historical texts in the Torah about, the frequency of linen and wool. Dr. Heidi Yellen, I studied her and her, she was actually inspired by Dr. Otto Warburg. And so I think, and he's known for his research in cancer, ironically, full circle. So the frequency of a cancerous cell is different than the frequency of a healthy cell. Okay. Everything is vibration. Do you know Brian Greene, The Elegant Universe? But it's on string theory. I did a collection on string theory many, many moons ago when I had my shop. And this idea of us being vibration, right? We're divine music. That's what we are, really. And so everything is frequency, not just the fabrics. Every single object has a frequency. And so if you look at it just only through that lens, what creates dissonance? What creates harmony, right? What amplifies your frequency, right? And so looking at it from that point of view, you can take away, and this is what I just get annoyed because I see people walking around and like Lycra stuck to them, like plastic stuck to them, and you're out in the heat and trying to, do exercise. And I'm like, oh my God, this is literally suffocating and creating and bringing your frequency down, even though you're in that sunlight and you're in that environment. How much of that affects you? It really depends. There's so many complex factors. And again, about that control, I would say the number one thing to think about is what is closest to, what is against your skin, right? Or what is inside your body? What are you imbibing, right? Whether that's inhaling or eating, right? So in terms of inhaling, the simplest of things, and I always talk about this, is to open your window. I'm sorry, but open your window, go outside because indoor air is the number one. I mean, it is so much more polluted than outdoor air. And the number one source of indoor air pollution is your area rug, is your wall to wall carpeting. And I'm like, and then there's the other layer. Is it synthetic?
Mm-hmm.
Because not only is it lowering your frequency, but you're also inhaling the nanoparticles of plastic in your dust. So you're literally eating your carpet and you don't even realize it. So why wouldn't you want to create that circulation? And that's a simple fix. So there are simple fixes. It's just that I think we get caught up with one lens and we just want to we're kind of in a society or in a world of specialization, but I find it so myopic at times. It's like we need to step back and look at the bigger picture and say, well, okay, everything can't be 100% wool. You know, there is 10%, polyester in this.
Mm-hmm.
Will I throw it out? You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, you can have polypropylene outdoor carpets outside. You don't have, you can have outdoor carpets that are polypropylene outside, but not inside,
Mm-hmm.
right? Inside, 100% wool or 100% natural would be great,
Yeah.
right? And pick and choose.
Yeah. Do you have so well actually to touch back on the fabrics, is there a fabric like when it comes to natural fabrics, are there ones that have higher frequencies than other, or is it really just the frequency of natural fabrics is going to be higher than the frequency of synthetic?
So it has been measured, and basically, wool and linen both are at the highest at 5,000 megahertz. So basically, and they can't. And the reason why they cancel each other out is because the wave goes from right to left, and the other one goes left to right. So that's the reason. But I would just say organic cotton, even silk is good. Wool and linen are great. And as far as synthetics, for example, don't let it be your underwear, right? If you have to wear a raincoat for, going out in the rain, wear a raincoat. You're not going to be wearing it with, well, you're naked underneath your trench coat. Not always, maybe sometimes. But what I'm saying is, you know, you, you should have a shirt on or something between
Right.
that and the other thing, right? So you're not like sitting there lying naked in your trench coat, like rolling around in bed. Maybe you are. Sometimes that might be okay. But all I'm saying is realize that what's really against what's intimately against you, make sure it's natural, and then kind of work your way out. And in terms of home design, like again, what you're sleeping
Mm-hmm.
in, your mattress.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't like foam. I'm not a fan of foam mattresses. And it's just, the old fashioned wool and cotton ticking. Like it's just very simple. Horsehair, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Natural materials. Think about it this way. And this is where the ancient comes in. What did your great grandma use?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
What are your thoughts on natural latex?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I wanted to ask that when you said foam. And so, I know, I think if we use natural latex the wrong way and we don't allow it to dry from both sides, it can become an issue. I've seen it actually become moldy pretty quickly if it's not getting that drying capability through it. So, something to keep in mind if you are using a natural latex, because it will mold quicker than a normal like foam will. It's going to be healthier than a normal foam, but that's something I have seen if people put their mattress on the floor or on like a platform that's just on the floor and there's no underneath the bed airflow. So something else to think about.
Yeah, or if it's on like MDF, like
Yes.
it's you don't want to be inhaling adhesive when you're sleeping.
Mm-mm.
Like, make sure that the wood that mattress is on is natural.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I love that. You've made that so simple for people. You know, it's not like you have to go out and swap every single thing in your entire life to get everything natural for clothing, but start with the things that are closest to your body. This is going off a little bit, but I'm curious if you could design a perfect healthy bedroom for somebody, since we've already got the mattress down, we know we don't want carpet in the room, even if it's natural carpet, because we're still trapping so much dust in that. What would you do? What would your perfect bedroom look like? And maybe with lighting and all.
Oh my gosh, my perfect bedroom would be facing east.
Mhm.
So I would wake up with the sun.
Yep.
I do love that. I do love that. It would have trees outside, so you would have that green coming in, lots of flowers for your eyes to feast on, and your window treatment would be a series of things. So you would have solars, you would have something sheer, basically, right, to diffuse, and then you could have blackout if you'd like behind that. But definitely, I have clients who keep the blackouts down at all times. I'm like, what are you doing? Open, like, open your window.
Yeah.
Oh, and then what I tend to do, this is my secret, is I tend to do beautiful stationary panels. They lift no matter how low your ceilings are, right? If it's 8.5 feet, whatever, is to do a stationary panel as high as possible in the space. So it gives that elevation like columns and change them out. Do them seasonally. Maybe do a deep velvet in the winter and then a vibrant, blush pink in the summer,
Mm.
right? Change out the material. Let it be linen on one time or cotton velvet another time. Play with it. I feel like we tend to stick to one thing and we go, what's that? Oh, another trick that I love is changing lampshades.
Mm.
For easy fix,
Yeah.
easy fix. So instead of having that, bland white lampshade, you can create your own lampshade. You can use either ribbon, right? Or fabric. I tend to drape, actually do workshops where I drape the lampshade in scarves. So I can show like you can change everything around. Just like, you have your little black dress and you wear a little scarf to add some, personality to it. Think of adding personality to your space
Mm.
by just changing things out. So have a seasonal change of the lampshades, right? Sometimes do a dark lampshade where it's covered in the gold on the inside or a copper, and
Mm.
then change it out to something, beautiful and luminous and light blue if you like airy, something for the summer. Think about changing seasonally like Persephone, right? Be not just tablescaping, but really change out the fabric in
Mm.
like I'm sure you change your seasonal bedding, whether it's flannel,
Yeah.
whether it's linen for the summertime, and then the duvet covers also change along with that season. So and with that, it makes you feel good because then you keep seeing the same colors over and over again. It gets so stale.
I know. You need to rebrand. You need a refresh. It really like it changes, it shifts the energy. And there it goes with the frequency of not only the fabric that you're using, but just the colors that you're using and all of it. Just so needed. I love that. Those are really easy little swaps.
Exactly, exactly. And also, number one thing I love is bedside. I love keeping fresh flowers.
Mhm.
That flowers have a frequency, they're a healing energy, and roses have one of the highest frequency of the flowers.
Mm.
So there's each flower has a certain frequency too, you could research. So I
Mm.
love roses. I've always loved roses. And even if it's just one, stem, in a vase, keep that near you. Keep things that are alive near you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on fake plants? Do I need to ask?
You're like your eyebrows cocked. It's such an oxymoron, Ashley, because I'm like, there was I saw like a fake green wall and I was shaking my head and I was sending his face and I'm like, Derek, look, I thought you would be happy with this. I'm like, no. It's off-gassing. It's literally like it's a double whammy because it's making you feel like it's, green and it's great and you're being biophilic, but it's fake and it's releasing toxins in your air. So why have, yes, people say, "Oh, I kill plants, I kill plants." Okay, I kill plants too. And I'm a gardener. I love, I've been gardening my whole life. I've killed plenty of plants. Trial and error. You learn. I actually have a list of the top 10 plants that I used in spaces that was vetted by, part of the NASA list, but things that I know have worked for my clients that are, very just easy to maintain and give you the maximum bang for your buck, not just in terms of oxygenating your space, but in filtering benzene, formaldehyde, trichloroethylene, and all of those fabulous VOCs.
Mhm. When you say NASA, is there a list that NASA has for the most oxygenating plants?
Yeah, they do.
Wow, that's really cool. I did not know that. So anyone can search that.
You can search it. It's there. It's there. And it's funny because I have an Amazon shop where I list the plants that I recommend along with really great accessories too. And I do plant workshops all the time. It's so amazing because a lot of times you see people with plants and their props, but maintaining them is really important.
Yeah. I'm going to link, I will link your website in your Amazon shop. So for anyone who's listening and wants to check out those plants and stuff, I'll link that in the show notes so that they can access that. So, what about lighting? I mean, you talked about natural light, but when I listened to your presentation with the Applied Quantum Biology Collective, you shared some really fascinating things about light that I think people might be interested in.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. One of the things that I have discovered, and I don't think many people are talking about this, truth be told, is the location of light to you. Okay.
Mhm.
It's one thing to have natural light. It's one thing to have, infrared and dim your lights at night. But think about the sun at high noon. Okay. It's right on top of your head. It's been the bane of my existence as a designer when I see that lone dome, lonely light in, in a sea of ceiling. And I'm like, is that your only light? It's so institutional, number one. Second of all, it's not circadianly aligned because it gives your body the signal that where's the sun? It's on top. Well, it's noon. No, it's not. So how can you relax? Right. So it's thinking about light in terms of your body. So if you think about nighttime, evening, sun is about 10, 15 degrees off the horizon. Where's your standing lamp or your table lamp or your sconce? Is it, not 3000 K? I mean, let it be, again, cover it with a scarf, but like, but let it be lower, literally lower in terms of height, verticality, and lower in terms of intensity, right?
Mhm.
So think about the sun and its frequency, not just like the wavelengths, but even when you see that beautiful sunrise, it's amber, it's
Mhm.
coral, it's pink. It's think about those colors at sunset, right? Think about those sunset colors in your home. They're warmer tones. They're not cool, right?
Mhm.
So blue light, which everyone's touting, oh, it's bad, it's bad. Of course, because it mimics a certain time of the day when it's really not that certain time of the day, right?
Mhm.
So like I feel bad for shift workers. Like that's
You
a
know,
whole, you know, podcast on its own. So so the idea of the proximity of the light to you is really important.
mhm.
And so and the type of light. So I also, again, I'm a purist. I like fire. Firelight is the only source of natural infrared light other than the sun. Okay. So I like lighting candles, make sure that they're, beeswax and not paraffin.
Mhm.
Make sure they're natural and but they're perfectly fine to use to signal to your body that it's time to rest.
Yeah.
And so use candles more also as a ritual to remind you of the light within you, right? And to amplify that light. So those are my tips.
Yeah, there is nothing like going to bed by candlelight. And it is one of those like, delicate dances because a lot of people are, even with the beeswax candle, it's like burning the wick and the smoke. But if you get a beeswax candle that's in a container and you just put a lid on it when you put it out, you won't get any smoke. So for somebody who might want to start working with candles and maybe eliminate some of that, fine particulate matter from the actual wick, that is a great option because I mean, for me at least, when I'm going to sleep by candlelight, I mean, obviously put it out before you fall asleep. But that like few hours before when you're reading a book, oh my gosh, you just naturally fall asleep. It's some of the best sleep you will get, honestly. Lighting's a fun.
Exactly. Of course, we're so like aligned. It's crazy. It's just each time you open your mouth, I'm like, yes, yes.
I know. I love everything you do. I'm so happy and so grateful that you took the time to have this conversation with me. I always ask this one question. We kind of talked about it in the beginning, but through your pursuit of healthier homes, is there anything that you felt like was just a real lesson learned for you, like an opportunity for growth? Is there something that you can say or share with people just as you've gone through this pursuit?
Thank you. Don't wait. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do it
Mm.
today. Do it today. I waited so long to bring artwork into my space that I really loved. And then I finally pulled the trigger when I was going through cancer because I didn't know whether I would have it tomorrow. So don't wait. You deserve to have beauty today. That is my heartfelt, soul felt message to anyone listening. Please give yourself that pleasure, give yourself that beauty because it does heal you.
You it's so beautiful. And I think that that's going to resonate with a lot of people because when we go through a really traumatic mold situation and we have to give up all of our belongings, I have clients who come to me who are like, I just want to build a wall that doesn't have any drywall so I can know exactly what's on the inside of the walls. Or can I leave my plumbing exposed because they're so fearful? They're so fearful. But I think today was such a great conversation on how healing beauty is. And this is part of what I teach my clients too, because you have to have that beauty. Otherwise, you're just constantly re triggering your trauma response, looking at the thing that, is just putting you back into that negative loop. So you shared so many beautiful things. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for you. And everybody go out and buy Mahwish's book, Purgatory to Paradise. I'll link everything we chatted about in the show notes so that you have easy access to it. And thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's podcast. We have one more thing before you go. We are giving away one spot into our Conscious Construction Container program, which is our signature program that helps you build and renovate your home from the ground up to reduce your exposure to mold, chemicals, and electromagnetic radiation. And even if you're not building a home, we've had a lot of students who have gone through the program who are not building a home, who have found immense value in going through the program because now they understand how their homes work and they're able to spot issues in homes that they're looking at, potentially to buy. And they just understand how to make their own home healthier through understanding these basic principles. All you have to do to enter to win is to listen to one episode of the Awakening Spaces podcast and subscribe and follow the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify podcast. And we'll give you 2 entries if you do it on both platforms. Comment on the Instagram post that we have linked below and tag a friend who you think would love this podcast or could benefit from the podcast. And every tag is another entry. I just want to say thank you so, so, so much for being here, for listening, and for leaving a rating and review, because this is going to help us get better guests onto the podcast in the future to provide you with more value. So we really, really do appreciate every star, every like, every comments and every subscribe that you can give us, because it really does help us bring you more value in the future. So thanks again for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.